In today's class, we are going to discuss three important things. What is the concept of OOP paradigm? What are the features of OOPs? And what are the concept or characteristics of OOPs? Let first comes to what is OOP paradigm. Remember, in object-oriented programming, we emphasize on data protection by different access specifiers like private, public, and protected. The object-oriented programming provides the concept of reusability, polymorphism, data abstraction. These are the important techniques through which object-oriented programming is popular among the user. Hence, the OOPS paradigm provides some of the motivating factor by the help of which we remove the flaws or the demerit that appears in procedural programming, which means that whatever the limitation that is found in procedural programming like C, we remove it by the help of your object-oriented programming, like reusability feature in the form of class and inheritance not available, polymorphing feature like overloading not available, data abstraction not available, data protection not available. These flaws or the limitation or disadvantages of procedural programming is overcome through the object-oriented paradigm. Hence, object-oriented programming treats the data as a critical element in program development because as you know, data member is important in object-oriented programming, but in procedural programming, functions are more important. Means we give emphasis on function in procedural programming, but we give the emphasis on the data in object-oriented programming. Data means your attributes or element like integer x, character y. These are the data element, data member, member data. Function means which operate on the member, void get, void display. These are known as your what? The functions. It deals with means object oriented programming deals with more closely to the function that operate on the data and protect it from accidental modification from outside the function. How the data protection of members and functions is made by the help of your access specifier, which is made by private, public, and protected. That is not available in procedural programming. OOPS allows the decomposition of a problem into number of entities called the object and build the data and functions around these objects. Because as we know, in object-oriented programming, members and methods are placed within a single packet that is known as your class, which provide the data encapsulation. And data encapsulation provides the decomposition of a problem. Means we have not to segregate or we have not to place everything in a single function. We have to segregate each and every function in one modules so that it is easy to understand, easy to debug and maintain for the future, so far as also the reusability, which is possible by the help of your object-oriented programming. And the data protection again made by access modifier or the specifier, that is private, public and protected. The data of the object can be accessed only by the function associated with the object, because as you know, when the class is declared, it is not allocating as memory. When the object is declared, it allocates the memory, because object is the key to the class. Without object, we cannot enter to the class, and by the help of object, we can interact with the members and functions. Member is used to store the value and function is used to operate on the member. Function of one object can access the function of another object because there is a relationship among the classes by the help of your objects. See this figure. If this is a class, this is another class, this is another class, there is the communication between the classes A, B, C. Means here you see there is data member and function, there is data member and function, there is data member and functions are acts as the messenger, because by the help of your function you can operate on the member, and by the help of your function we can interact with another class, because you remember that the object of one class can access the function of that class, And if within the class you declare the object of another class, then by the help of your object you can call another class functions. Means objects are used to communicate among the classes by the help of functions, and functions are used to operate on the members. Hence, these are the single entities, and placing members and functions in a single class, that is known as your data encapsulation. What are the important, the striking feature of object-oriented programming? We emphasize the data rather than procedure or function. Already we have told. Programs are divided into small part is known as your object, because in procedural programming we divide the program into number of functions, but in object-oriented programming we divide the problems into small objects. Data structure are designed to characterize the object, means what type of data kind you want to store, that is defined by the user. Hence the class can be termed as a user defined data type. Data is hidden and cannot be accessed by external function by the help of your access specifier like private, public and protected. Objects may communicate with each other through function. As I told you, objects act as the messenger. Objects can use functions to communicate among the classes and members. New data and functions can be easily added whenever necessary. In the last class we have told, in procedural programming you first declare then in use. Any part you cannot declare any variable or function, but in object-oriented programming, any part, even if from the beginning to the end, wherever you want at instance, you can declare the any new data member and function. That is the flexibility of OOPS. And procedural programming follows the concept of top-down approach, whereas object-oriented programming follows the principle of bottom-up approach. What are the characteristics of the OOPS concepts? Remember, we have to discuss many characteristics of object-oriented programming like classes, objects, members, methods, encapsulation, data abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, message passing, and dynamic binding. If all those characteristics a programming language supports, then that can be termed as object-oriented programming, and these things are known as the concept or characteristics of the C++. Hence, object-oriented programming is the way of solving a complex problem by breaking into small problem, means in decentralized way. We have not to make a single segment, we have to divide a problem into small module, and each small module provide the solution of a complex problem or the big problem. That is also possible in object-oriented programming. Before object-oriented programming, commonly referred as OOP program, written in procedural programming, they are nothing but a long list of instructions, because we cannot provide the data abstraction, we cannot provide the data reusability, we cannot provide the data restriction, which is possible in object-oriented programming. On the other hand, object-oriented programming is all about creating objects that can interact with each other. This makes it easier to develop the program in object-oriented programming, as we can understand the relationship between them. Already we have discussed. Objects are used to communicate with the functions, and function is used to interact with the member, and by the help of object and functions we can communicate among the classes. Hence, a big problem is divided into small program, and each and every small module as a function provides the solution of a big problem. The first concept of object-oriented programming is class. We know class is a user-defined data type, and which is an important characteristic of the object-oriented programming. Hence, it can be defined as the building block of C++, which leads the object-oriented programming as a class. The best definition to remember, it is a user-defined data type which can hold members and functions, which can be accessed and used by creating the instance of the class. Instance is known as your object of the class. And remember that why it is user-defined data type, because it can store data member and member function. It is nothing but it is a blueprint of the object. Why it is known as a blueprint object? Because if there is no object, we cannot interact within the class. A class is a user-defined data type, has members and functions. Data members are the variables, and the member functions are functions to manipulate on these variables. As I told, members are used to store the values, and methods or the functions are used to operate on the member. Together, these data member functions define the property and behavior of the class, that is known as your data encapsulation. In the above example of a class as a car, the data member will be speed and limit, mileage, etc. And member function can apply on the brakes and increase the speed. Means if the class is car, suppose we can define in latter part, class is the car, name of the car is user defined, you can take as X. The members may be speed limit and mileage, and the member function might be anything else like brakes, increase speed, etc. Means anything the member, anything may be the function, anything the name of the class, but you remember that class contains the members and methods. Method is used to operate on the member, and interact with the class we need the objects. What is object? An object is known as instance of a class, or you can tell that an object is identifiable entity having some characteristics and behavior. Because if room is a class and the key is the object, if you don't find the object as the key, you cannot enter to the room, and within the room there is the member and function. We cannot interact with the materials that is available in the room, that is member and functions. When a class is defined, as I told, no memory is allocated, but when it is initiated, means object is created, it allocates the memory. So here see, there is a skeleton class, user defined class name as identifier as a person, name and ID are the members, public is the access specifier. We can define public, private or protected, it is written as a public. Void getDetail is the function, and function carrying the block of code as the definition. Everything is present within a class. To interact with a class, to enter with the class, we need the object of the class, like class name, object name. Class name, object name, or only class name, object name is possible. And by the help of this P1 as user defined, we can interact with the function, like P1.getDetail, P1.name, P1.id. Dot means is a membership operator which acts as a bridge between the objects with the members or the function. That gives rise to the concept of data encapsulation. Name ID is the member, getDetail is the method, enter persons class containing how it is packaged together is known as your data encapsulation, and object is used to interact with the class. What is encapsulation? Encapsulation is defined as wrapping of data and functions as a single unit. In object-oriented programming, encapsulation is defined as binding data and functions together and manipulate upon them depending upon the requirement, which provide the concept of reusability and provide data restriction. In single line, we can remember placing members and functions together in a single packet, that is known as your data encapsulation. What is data abstraction? Only accessing the essential, rest is hidden. For example, we are using a vehicle. The vehicle is working fine. We have to enjoy its functionality, but we have not to think how vehicle's engine is built. That is known as your data abstraction. Data abstraction is one of the important and essential striking feature of object-oriented programming. Abstraction means displaying only essential information but hiding the detail. Data abstraction refers to provide the only essential information about the data to the outside world, hiding the background detail or implementation. Just take another example. You enjoy the curry. The curry is best, but how curry is prepared, that is not known, that is hidden. That is known as your data abstraction. Means in our programming OOPS concept, we should remember extracting the essential. Don't remember how it is built. Don't try to know how it is built, because you are the end user. You want to assess its functionality, but forget it how it is built up. The person who make it, he has to know the hidden details. What is polymorphism? As you know, polymorphism is derived from the Greek word poly. Poly means many, morphism means form. Class having many form is known as your polymorphism. Overloading is the best example of polymorphism. We have to discuss in the latter part as a chapter. Means a function name will behave differently according to the parameter and return type, because if many functions will take, it will take maximum space. If a single function will take and use it in different way, that is the example of polymorphism. Suppose you take the example, you have taken a bottle to carry the water, but in the latter part, your bottle can carry petrol, your bottle can carry any type of drinks or anything else. Drinks means it is your, suppose, any type of sherbets or like this. Then the bottle is, the purpose is to carry the liquid, but it can hold different liquids at the different circumstances. That is the example of polymorphism. In normal life, we can tell Like a man at the same time, a father, that same person may be a husband of others, in the same person may be the employee of organization, that person behaves, poses differently at different circumstances. That is the example of a polymorphism. In simple word, in our OOPS concept, we can say, we can define polymorphism as the ability of a message to be displayed in more than one form. That is the best example of a polymorphism. What is inheritance? The process of creating a new class from existing class known as inheritance. Existing class known as base class, newly created class is known as your child class. Child class uses all the property of the parent class. Reusability is the greatest feature of the inheritance. Process of creating a new class from existing class define inheritance. Reusability is the greatest feature of inheritance, means the parent class's property will be used by the child classes. That is inheritance. Hence, always remember there are the four important pillars of object-oriented programming. Number one, data encapsulation. Number two, data abstraction. Number three, polymorphism. Number four, inheritance. Out of several. What is dynamic binding? Because there are two types of memory allocation. Binding is nothing but allocation. There are two types of memory allocation made. One is static, one is dynamic. Dynamic is better because how much is required at the runtime, that has to be allocated by the specific compiler. That is known as your dynamic binding. Means memory allocated according to the requirement at the runtime is known as your dynamic binding. Sometimes it is termed as late binding or runtime binding, we called it. What is message passing? The objects acts as the messenger by which we can send the value and return the value to the program or in the form of class by the help of your function, and hence that mechanism is known as your message passing mechanism. As we discussed, objects communicate with one another by sending and receiving information to each other. A message for an object is the request for execution of procedure or the function that will invoke or run a function of receiving object that generates the desired result. Message passing involves specifying the name of the object, name of the function, and information to be sent. Because object is used to communicate, and object can pass the value to a function, and by the help of function you can return the value. That facility is known as your message passing mechanism. If a programming language supports all of its characteristics, that can be termed as an object-oriented programming language. C++ is one of them. Means it should support class, objects, members, methods, data encapsulation, data abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, dynamic binding, message passing. Then the programming language can be termed as an object-oriented programming language. Hence, these are the important concepts: polymorphism, inheritance, encapsulation, object, class, and data abstraction. In today's class, we discussed many important features. Try to understand it. Having any doubt, please make the comment. If you like this video, please like it. If you have not previously subscribed it, kindly subscribe it. See you in the next class. Thank you.